Hello, my name is Neifa Rifal and I am a student in political science at the University of Bordeaux. My purpose today is to brief you on my counterfactual examination of a moment in Australia's history which I believe could represent a great threat that is actually still being avoided today but could have a terrible outcome for Australia and overall the Indo-Pacific region. I have chosen an event that took place a few months back. It was back in October 2018. China issued a stern new direct warning to Australia, saying the country was walking a tightrope between the USA and China. In a blistering editorial, the state media outlet, the China Daily, warned the nation not to be led by the nose by America, cautioning the Morrison government against adopting a Cold War mentality. It said there was a fragile peace in the region that could be shattered by the slightest misstep. The editorial was written after President Donald Trump's national security advisor said the Morrison government would be increasing its naval cooperation with the US in the tense region. Now, on one side, we have the relations between China and Australia. Australia and China's relations are characterized by a strong trade bond. Australia is China's fifth highest supplier of imports and its 10th biggest customer for exports. 25% of Australia's manufactured imports come from China. 13% of its exports are thermal coal to China. Back in 2014, the Australian Prime Minister and the Chinese President agreed to describe the relationship as a comprehensive and strategic partnership. Now, on the other side, we have the relations between Australia and the United States of America. These two countries are known for being allies. They both consider each other as, I quote, vital ally, partners, and friends. Defense ties and cooperation are very close, and the US and Australian Army have fought together in every significant conflict since World War I. The Australia-New Zealand-United States Security Treaty, which is also called ANZUS, signed back in 1951, can prove it. Now, the problem here are the relations between China and the United States. A popular narrative on US and China relations assumes that both nations want to be the world's number one power. China expert Michael Pillsbury claims that China has a secret strategy to replace the United States as the leading global power. Harvard scholar Graham Allison argues that the two countries are heading toward a war neither wants, what he called the Thucydides trap, the deadly pattern of structural stress that results when a rising power challenges a ruling one. In the middle of it all, we have Australia, who has very important relations with both countries. Australia maintaining its economic relations with China while strengthening its defense cooperation with the United States. China does not agree and sees it as a threat. This situation could result into a trade war between Australia and China, which would have a very damaging impact on Australia's economy and eventually escalate into an armed conflict, making Australia the new Cuba of a potential new Cold War. I consider the most important factor driving the actual outcome to have been the economic ties between the three countries. This view is supported by a liberal theory stating that trade has a peace effect. Authors such as Ruth Herold and Steve Hirsch believe that trade has a pacifying effect. So, the three countries care more about maintaining the economic trade that serves their economy rather than to start a conflict. Another important factor is the presence of international organizations that since the Cold War have permitted to choose diplomacy over conflict. To complete this factor, we also have the position adopted by all countries. Also, according to the theory of balancing of powers, that was introduced by authors such as Morgenthau, which explains that the rise of China as a power will eventually lead to a balanced situation between the United States and China and not a conflict. Now, for the alternative outcome, a potential conflict, I consider the most important fact to be the mistrust between the countries. Although they have relations, the mistrust could lead one of the countries to engage into a conflict in order to protect itself. According to the offense realism theory introduced by scholars such as Mearsheimer, states cannot trust each other and one with the military capability could engage in a conflict in order to defend themselves. The threat to US power has its president present a very different China to the world with a much more ambitious and expensive foreign policy, it would be an application of the hegemonic war theory authors such as Waltz have dealt with. I consider that the actual outcome, which is a situation of tension, is mainly due to the fact countries are not willing to enter a war nowadays due to the cost of it all. Trade seems to be more profitable, but the threat of a potential conflict can still be sensed.